Today on Green Pill Weekly, Andy uses hindsight to tell you what he would have done different his first year beekeeping, and Nick visits an ornamental hobby hoop house.
With spring upon us, there's probably more than a few of you thinking about getting your hands on some bees. And it's been a few years now since I began my journey with bees, and I'm going to try to help you avoid the years of struggle that it took for me to just get to the point where I'm getting a handle on this. Now, I will start with my first hive of bees. Didn't make it through the first year. My second hive of bees didn't make it through the winter. And my third hive of bees I picked up, and I was using, a gentleman encouraged me to use foundationless frame because it's natural and there's no blah, blah, blah in the bees. Well, we're putting the bees in a box, so that's not very natural to begin with. And the bees are European, so they're livestock animals. We got to get over this whole deal of how natural this really is. We want the bees to be healthy, and we want the honey to be clean, and we want to enjoy ourselves. So let's focus on those three things here. So I got the hive of bees, and I threw them in a deep frame box with foundationless frame. So what ended up happening with my bees was, just as most of you in a colder area, you're going to start with feeding that hive. You're going to have to feed them probably for a little while. We want them, if you're getting packaged bees, it's going to take a while to get brood. They need to build their comb out of wax, and that's going to take energy and time. And so we're going to feed them and give them a head start. What happened with my bees was they were off to a pretty darn good start. Now, I'm in an area with not a whole lot of advanced beekeepers, and it was difficult for me to find someone close to where I'm at. Geographically, it's kind of difficult in our area. So I was just kind of going by what this gentleman on the internet had told me. He said not to treat the boxes with any kind of paint or oil or anything because this would hurt the bees. So I avoided all that. It was cedar, supposed to hold up. More on that later. So my bees did pretty well. And after a few weeks, they were most of the way filled in their bottom box there. So I decided, all right, it's probably time for me to add my next brood box. Now, again, this gentleman says, okay, the deep box is not such a good idea. Go with mediums because then everything is universal. Now, this might work better in a warmer climate, but what ended up happening to me was there's not a whole lot of room for brood, so I was going to need another one. So by the time I went to go put my third box on, I really had some problems. I had a heavy nectar flow, and what ended up happening was I had some cross comb. So looking at the comb from above, we have our frames, and what happened was I had a few good combs, and then they kind of started to curve on me. And what ends up happening with that is it gets more and more extreme until eventually you have some that are through 3/4 of your frames. Now you have to cut them all up. You're going to have massive bee death. You're going to lose honey. It's going to be a mess. Your bees are going to hate you. You're going to hate what you're doing. It's no fun at all. Now, from here, you can save things. You can cut them up and take a frame and rubber band the comb into that frame. You know, a jaggedy chunk that's dripping honey all over, and there's bees, and it's a bad deal. But you can do this, and it will work. And the bees will cut and remove rubber band or yarn or twine, fishing line. There's a lot of different ways guys like to do that, or I guess don't like to do that. And so that is a viable option. I wanted to let the bees work this out. Being new, and with the person that was giving me this advice, all the bees will work it out. That is not true. What the problem is I can't get in here to inspect now, so I don't know where the queen is, if the queen's there, if she's laying, how many queens are in there, if they're making queen cells, if they're getting ready to swarm, if there's disease in there or pests. There's no way for me to get in there without completely destroying everything. So now what happens? Me, in my ignorance, threw on another box because I figure, you know what, maybe they'll straighten it out now. The nectar flow has slowed down. Well, now my bees had too much room and they swarmed. No bees. So at this point, another big rookie error. So the bees are gone. What is the first thing I should have done? I should have gone out there and cleaned and sterilized and got everything ready to go and gotten, set up for where do we go from here? I just gave up on it. What ends up what does a hive that has honey and some partially filled frames and smells stinky like a beehive, what does that attract? A swarming hive. So I ended up with a new hive came in from somewhere, made home in my nest. So I finally go out there to clean it up in the fall. Lo and behold, not only do I have bees, but now I have crosscomb in the third box. So what I ended up doing is feed the bees, keeping them alive, and figuring, okay, here's where I'm at. I have nothing into these bees. The others were total loss, but I have nothing into these bees yet. So what we did is we went out we fed the bees, but this is called a Bailey comb swap. And some of you will do this. There's areas where it's the law. You can't have frames in your beehive for longer than 3 years. Contaminants and things build up and disease, and it's a problem. It spreads to other hives. So this may be something you're doing with not cross comb. And it's actually kind of simple when you do it like this. But what you end up doing, and what we did, was we added a new box here with frame with foundations in it. So the bees have something straight to begin constructing properly from. Then we did the mountain camp feeding method with solid sugar. It's pretty chilly here. It's down in the 20s at night still. And you use paper towel or newspaper, wet that down, and wet layers of sugar. So it's a solid chunk. You want them to stick together. If the sugar is just a powder, the bees will get it out of there. They'll think it's a mess. If they can't pick it up and move it, they'll taste it. They'll eat it. Then we had to add a little spacer here, and I had an extra medium box that we removed the frames from and then put the lid on. So that means, the bees can get up here and eat, and they don't have to break the clusters. So the hope is that the bees in the next week or so should start moving up here, eating off the top, and building comb and getting the queen up there to start laying brood in this box here, because this is going to be our new brood box. Then we're going to come out a few weeks later, and we're going to smoke them pretty good and make sure that the queen, make sure the queen's in this box, and then we're going to add an excluder right here with an eat board with some entrance holes. We're going to seal the bottom. So what that will do is that means that we're going to trap our queen up here where we want her. The bees are going to have access to come down and get honey and feed. The brood can hatch and join the rest of the hive. Then a couple weeks later, we come in, we're going to remove all of those nasty boxes. And we're going to end up burning them in this situation. They've been out there for a few years. These are bees from who knows where, the hives from the combs from a couple different hives. We're just going to get rid of that mess and start fresh with this new brood box. And then our goal is to have 2 deep brood boxes with foundation, straight, beautiful comb, ready for fall, so that next spring we can split our hives and then hopefully have a few 100 pounds of honey and get back on the right track. Now you can see how me trying to do all the natural, the easier, softer bee ways, letting them do it their way, that led to a 3-year chasing my tail, and now I'm finally getting to a point. Yes, I could have just junked everything and started over, bought new hive. That's expensive, and that doesn't teach you the same lesson. Now, when I go to maybe skip a step or, hey, I'm going to do it, no, you don't even think about it twice, because after the situation that I'm dealing with right now, there's no reason for me to be able to justify not doing something or doing something that I know isn't in the best interest of my bees. Because these bees are my livestock, so they are in my care, and it is my responsibility to make sure that I give them the best chance that they can have. They're not living in nature right now. They're living in my little world.
Hey folks, it's Nick, and I guess I didn't think about it till just this second, but I'm going to share pictures of my vacation with you a little bit. As I go on vacation, I always try to at least visit some farmers, and this one in particular happened to be real close to somebody we worked with back last fall. This is one of our prototype houses that we sent out into the world, and kind of we work our bugs out of the system. This is a smaller 10-foot by 20-foot hoop house, one of the all-metal ones. We have a smaller production one in the works. It should come out, I'd say late summer, if not a little earlier. So you can kind of look forward to that. But this 10 by 20, I think the reason I wanted to share this so much is 2 things. Number one, it's very much how I started out. Super small, just for pleasure, very ornamental, plant-based. And then secondly, man, I just can't tell you how nice it was in here. there wasn't the rush that we usually get, or the gravity of being inside of a tunnel that's made for food production where we're selling stuff. And this is just a guy who sells a little bit on the side through Facebook groups, through consignments at nursery, but he's just doing this for himself, for pleasure. All that stress is completely gone. I mean, I could have laid in a hammock in this place all day long. It was just awesome. And there was just eye candy all over the place. The pictures came out great. I mean, the lighting was perfect. It was just a cool day. So I felt compelled to share it with you. But within that, don't forget to have fun. Like, dedicate a little corner of wherever you're at, whether that's a plot, whether that's the hoop house, whether that's even a small 10-20 in your grow operation. Do something for you. We're doing this for everybody else. We're doing this for your community, but have fun. Remember why you got into growing. And man, just look at this. Look, there's flowers, there's house plants, there's ornamentals, there's some grow bags and starts where he's growing his own food just for him. No stress. I think we were there like 4 hours, and I could have spent 4 days. I mean, it's such a small operation, but what a good time. His deck was banging. Nice little shade area. I mean, look at that grill. Imagine going out there and just grilling it up, tending to your plants, hanging out with the dog. And it was just paradise. And then it was also fun just to see the hoop house there in real life. You know, it's one thing when we draw these things out on paper and then go through the whole production run and put them on the crate and all that. But to see one out and actually being used, and then seeing some things that he's done, like put in the vents, and look at that floor. He put in a nice paver stone floor. It was just cool, man. And I just wanted to share that with you, and hopefully give you a reminder to do something for yourself, do something that gives you pleasure, enjoy it, take time to look at these things as you go. I mean, we're pretty all about business over here, but remember why you got into it. And I'll just leave you with that, and I hope everybody has a great day.